The Royal Law Crown Diamond Family. I have been requested by many offices in Canada for the family genealogy of the Royal Law Crown Diamond family. So here it is. It is also in the genealogy book of Switzerland, Sweden, Denmark, and the historian Queen Elizabeth II. First king in the King's Association communicated with is the Queen Marguerite II of Denmark. Notable information: the Count Avil fell from Ferguson, an officer in Sweden of the North Wars, visited with the King Louis XVI of France's wife, Queen Marie Antoinette, from Vienna, Austria, in the royal Bourbon family of France. The Count Axel fell von Ferguson, an officer in Sweden of the North Wars, visited the King Charles X, the King of France, born Charles Philippe of France in 1757, the youngest son of Marie Josephine and the Dauphin King Louis XVIII, at the Palace of Versailles. He is called Count of Artois at birth by his grandfather, King Louis XV. He is the youngest male seemingly considered unlikely to be the king. His wife is Princess Marie Therese by Savoy, the daughter of Victor Amadeus III, Amadeus Mozart, music composer, King of Sardinia. King Charles X moves his family to France in January 1814, following the abdication of Napoleon I. He becomes King Charles X in 1824. King Charles X and his family fled from France and settled in England in 1830. They, the Royal Bourbons, moved to Prague in the winter of 1832, residing at the Radishin Palace at the invitation of Emperor Francis I of Austria. King Charles X died of cholera on November the 6th, 1836, in Corsia, Italy, and was interred in what is now Nova Korčija, Slovenia. There is no surviving children in the King Charles X family. The young Princess Royal of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette ran into the crowd in France and was never found. She had ideas of her own and is assumed dead. It was Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth II of the UK who thought it was important to remember this information in the name of Charles. Queen Marguerite II of Denmark thought Prince Charles of Queen Elizabeth II of the UK as a bully. He telephoned Princess Lady Caroline Joy Law Crown in Canada to ask her and Queen Marguerite II of Denmark if they had any different information about King Charles X of France and the disappeared Princess Royal daughter of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. The Royal Law Crown Diamond family. The first king is the King Charles XIII, the King of Sweden and Norway. His brother is King Gustavia III, the King of Sweden and Norway. The second King, Gustavia III, succeeded his brother King Charles XIII of Sweden and Norway. King Gustavia III married Princess Sophia Magdalena of Denmark. The third king is Desideri, the Queen Consort of Sweden and Norway. She was born Eugene Bernardine Desiree Clary in Marcella, France. The fourth king is King Oscar I Bernadotte Bonaparte. He was the second monarch of the House of Bernadotte. He married Josephine of Luxembourg, the Princess of Bologna, and the Princess of Galleria. He ruled Switzerland. He abdicated to live the rest of his life using the name Percy. He has a young second wife named Princess Marie Crown of Princess Theria of Denmark. The King Oscar II of Sweden married his first wife, the Princess Sophia of Nassau. The second wife is the Princess Ingeborg in the Kingdom of Denmark. He is the third son of King Oscar I. The fifth king is the Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte. King Oscar I Sterling Crown is wrongly known in the British Commonwealth, the USA, and the Canada as the Duchess Princess Royal Sarah Bernadotte Bonaparte. King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling of Switzerland. The Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, is the coronation queen of Switzerland when she is 11 years old. Her first childhood husband is Prince Royal Frederick of Queen Victoria in London, England. He is the same age as Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling. The Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, dated the Prince King Gustav in the King Oscar II of Sweden and Norway. Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, is the immediate Saint Anne de Pins, Pins family in home economics, sewing, Switzerland, and the Holy Pope Pius X of the Vatican City. The Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, Crown Sterling, is socially nicknamed as Duchess Princess Sarah McCutcheon Bernadotte Bonaparte. King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, for the communities of the UK, the Canada, and the USA. The name Queen Abba Elsa is a very new name in England. The citizens in the UK have difficulty getting accustomed to the foreign name, so they called her Duchess Princess Sarah McCutcheon of Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling. The Holy Pope Pius X said Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also the Crown Sterling, should use her name in every country she visits. The other name, Duchess Princess Sarah McCutcheon, is not necessary. The Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also the Crown Sterling, is socially nicknamed Duchess Princess Sarah McCutcheon Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, by Scotland. Her first HRH king is Duke Alfred of Edinburgh, the Prince Alfred in Queen Victoria. He is a widower. He deliberately set up a casual meeting in Queen Royal Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also the Crown Sterling, the very beautiful and the very wealthy daughter in the King Oscar of Switzerland. The Duke Alfred of Edinburgh refers to him as Hans. The Duke Alfred of Edinburgh had wanted to meet a very wealthy Princess Royal. The only wealthy Princess Royal who visited the British Commonwealth in Scotland was the Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Crown Sterling. The only Princess Royal the British royals had heard of is the Queen Princess Royal Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, nicknamed the Duchess Princess Sarah McCutcheon. The Queen Princess Royal Abba Elsa Bernadotte of King Oscar I is the coronation queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling in Switzerland, visited the Scotland of her Stirling Castle and the Edinburgh Castle in Scotland. The Duke Alfred of Edinburgh agreed to move to Canada with the Queen Princess Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Crown Sterling, from Switzerland. The Queen Princess Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, inherited a very large amount of money from her father, King Oscar I, in Switzerland. They all know the inheritance is from King Oscar I and not from King Oscar II of Sweden and Norway. The Queen Princess Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Sterling Crown, agreed to marry Duke Alfred Crown of Edinburgh, also the Duke Prince HRH of Canada, knowing he would be a very poor king, Prince Alfred Crown for Canada. The Duke Prince Alfred Crown, also the Duke Prince HRH of Canada, married his second wife, the Queen Princess Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, knowing she would provide for him very well. The Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown, did do that. The Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown, provided a wonderful life for the Prince HRH Alfred Crown. The Duke Alfred did always call himself the Prince HRH Alfred Crown of Switzerland. They both attended very many parties in Rhode Island, New York State, USA, of the Vanderbilt family. The Prince HRH Alfred Crown and the Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte and King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown, very much enjoyed themselves at the parties in Rhode Island, New York, USA. They have the very good manners of the very many guests have. Mrs. Vanderbilt sent a very special invitation to the Prince Alfred Crown and the Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Sterling Crown, to attend the opening in her new tea house of very Chinese fashion. The Duke Alfred Crown and Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte, also Sterling Crown's first daughter, is Princess Vera Bernadotte Bonaparte. The Princess Royal Vera Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Crown Sterling, does not have to have a second name because a virile man does not have to prove his virility any further. The Prince HRH Alfred Crown died in the castle of Germany with throat cancer. The Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Sterling Crown, married Prince Duke Arthur of Connaught. He was forever known as the Prince HRH Arthur Crown of Switzerland. He is forever to eternity the Prince HRH of Switzerland. They had the 3 live birth daughters in Canada. The Duchess Princess Vera Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Sterling Crown, is the next Duchess Princess in Canada. Her daughter is the Princess Mildred Joy Crown, the daughter in Prince Royal Earl Van Norman, and the adopted Prince Thomas Percy Crown. The adopted Prince Thomas Percy is the son in the very old King Oscar I. King Oscar I is able to use the name Percy after abdicating the throne to Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, also Sterling Crown. The old King Oscar I landed in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, after a storm in the ocean. His first wife died in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. He returned to Denmark and then Switzerland. The old King Oscar I, now known as Percy, has a very young wife named Princess Marie Crown from Denmark. She visited him in Switzerland. The old King Oscar I, now known as Percy, and his young wife, Princess Marie Crown of Princess Theria of Denmark, were aboard the Titanic in 1912. They had a live birth son they named Percy. The son, Percy, is a survivor in the Titanic of 1912. He is adopted by the Prince Arthur Crown and Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte, as also Sterling Crown. His name is Prince Thomas Percy Crown. He has a wife and family named Princess Royal Vera Van Norman of King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown. They have one daughter named Princess Mildred Joy Crown. Princess Marie Crown returned to Denmark. She was nicely advised to return to Denmark by the Prince H.R.H. Arthur Crown. He has no friends in Canada for Princess Marie Crown to meet. Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte, King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown, known in the British Commonwealth, the USA, and the Canada as the nickname Duchess Princess Sarah McCutcheon of King Oscar I of Switzerland. She is the coronation queen, the Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown. Her only gentleman knight, the Knight John, is alive in 2016 of 103 years of age in Switzerland. He is the legal sword and crown hammer knight. The adopted Prince Thomas Percy Crown and the Princess Vera van Norman of King Oscar I are from Switzerland and Denmark genealogy. The Prince Thomas Percy Crown is the son in old King Oscar I. The local people in the Canadian towns called Princess Vera van Norman Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown. The Princess Rebecca Jane Smith, from time to time by mistake, because Princess Vera van Norman Bernadotte in King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, was a very small size 3 and 4 feet 7 inches tall. Mr. Prince William Smith, his first wife is the African woman in the USA. His second wife is Mrs. Princess Rebecca Jane Smith, maiden name Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, was murdered by an RCMP for giving forward evidence. Mrs. Princess Rebecca Jane Smith, the Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, is murdered by an RCMP in jail by starvation. She is the first evidence and the first witness of In Cold Blood. It is now a movie and a book. The History of Sweden, Prince Carl of Sweden and Norway, Duke of Västergötland, 1878 to 1958, is the third son of Oscar III of Sweden and Norway. The Princess Sophia of Nassau is the first wife in the King Oscar II. The Princess Ingeborg of Denmark, the Queen of Sweden and Norway, is the second wife in King Oscar II, Queen of Sweden. The Queen Ingeborg's family in Denmark is herself the Princess Ingeborg Charlotte Caroline Frederica Louise of Denmark, the fifth daughter in King Frederick VIII of Denmark. The daughter Princess Ingeborg is the old King Frederick of Denmark VIII. She knew the Gothel. The Gothel is assumed as the Princess Gothel. The present-day Queen Sylvia of Sweden knows the information in Rapunzel and Gothel. The Duchess Princess Vera van Norman Hershey, maiden name Crown, in Bernadotte Bonaparte of Oscar I, Crown Sterling, reigns for many years in Canada with a very little bit of guidance from the Kings in the Kings Association of Europe and the world. The Duchess Princess Vera van Norman, maiden name Crown, Bernadotte of King Oscar I, also Crown Sterling, is very educated by Prince H.R.H. Alfred, and the Duchess Princess Abba Elsa Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I, also Sterling Crown in Canada, is very noted by the kings of England, Europe, Switzerland, Sweden, Denmark, and China. The Duchess Princess Mildred Joy Law Crown and her husband Prince Raymond Willis Law I, the son in Prince Royal Frederick Law Olmsted, king ordained by the Roman Catholic Supreme Court in the world for the hanging of the 7 nuns in the cannibalism of children in Montreal, Quebec. He is the Frederick Law Olmsted in the Vanderbilt's Breakers Castle, Rhode Island, New York, USA. Mr. Prince Raymond Willis Law was not in the court of the Supreme Court of the Roman Catholic Church. It was Frederick Law Olmsted, his father. Mr. Prince Raymond Willis Law is the son in Prince Frederick Law Olmsted. The Prince Frederick's wife is the Princess Mary Hershey in Pakistan of the King Abdul of Punjab, the King of Pakistan. The King Abdul of Pakistan married an African princess. The Princess Mary Hershey is the daughter in the British Lord Robert Hershey and the sister in Alfred Hershey, discoverer of DNA. The Prince Frederick Law Olmsted is the designer gardener in the Vanderbilt family Biltmore Mansion, South Carolina, and the Rhode Island, New York, USA. He is the designer, irrigator, creator of the Central Park, New York City, New York, USA. He royaled Canada jointly with Duchess Princess Vera Van Norman Bernadotte Bonaparte of King Oscar I. The Duchess Princess Vera Van Norman crown is murdered by a fanatic in Guelph, Ontario of October 1981. The Duchess Princess Lady Caroline is the next to reign in Canada after the death of her Mrs. Duchess Princess Mildred Joy Law Crown Smith, nominated by the Queen Abba Elsa Bernadotte of King Oscar I and the Princess Vera Van Norman, daughter in Duke Alfred, the Duke Arthur Crown of Connaught, the Prince of Switzerland. This cannot be challenged. The rules are made in the Vatican City. The parliaments voted it as true. It didn't have to be voted in. The parliaments also know it cannot be challenged. The rules are made in the Vatican City. End notes. The note McCutcheon is taken out. The theft in Scotland was named McCutcheon, confessed to lying. The 5 portrait paintings stolen from France were stolen by the Scottish visitor Mr. Paul Mackay. Prince Frederick Law Olmsted is the son of Queen Victoria and H.R.H. Albert Saxe-Coburg. Mr. Prince Frederick Law Olmsted married into King Frederick of Denmark royal family. He is the new king of Denmark for 1 year with no children. There is no children in the marriage. He ran away from Denmark when he heard the older former King Frederick of Denmark, who is very much loved by the people, is shot in the head by a fanatic. The fanatic is thought to be Rapunzel of Denmark. The new King Prince Frederick Law Olmsted is legally allowed to abandon Denmark. The 2 facts being the former very old King Frederick is very much loved by the people, and he is shot in the head by a fanatic thought to be the old King Frederick's daughter, the Princess Rapunzel of Denmark. Prince Frederick Law Olmsted runs away from Princess Rapunzel in Rhode Island, New York, USA. The Princess Rapunzel shot her father, old King Frederick, in the head at close range. The new Prince Frederick lives with the Vanderbilt family in the Breakers Castle, Rhode Island, New York, and the Biltmore Mansion, South Carolina, USA. He knows the Countess Sophia Vanderbilt in the Breakers Castle. The Prince Frederick Law Olmsted irrigates, designs, and builds the Central Park, New York City, New York, USA. Thank you. This is Princess Lady Carolyn Joy Law Crown, MT, LMA, specialized physician and PhD, paralegal.